Elias Vance's world was measured in millimeters and microns, in the subtle harmonies of a perfectly balanced engine. His garage, a sanctuary of order and function, smelled of clean oil, hot metal, and the faint, sweet scent of the bubblegum soap his daughter Maya insisted on using. His hands, though permanently stained with the ghosts of grease, were instruments of creation. They could diagnose a faulty transmission by its vibration, or coax a sputtering engine back to life with a surgeon's precision. In this world, a world of tangible problems and logical solutions, he was a king. His kingdom was small, just the two-bedroom apartment above the garage. Its walls a gallery of Maya's vibrant crayon masterpieces. But it was a kingdom built on love, integrity, and the quiet satisfaction of a day's honest work. For Elias, a man who had once designed systems that could power entire cities, this was more than enough. It was everything. Miles away, in a spire of glass and steel that pierced the clouds, Genevieve Sterling ruled a different kind of kingdom. As the CEO of Sterling Innovations, her world was measured in quarterly earnings and market share. Her office was a minimalist expanse of white marble and chrome, offering a panoramic view of a city she commanded but never truly touched. Her hands, always flawlessly manicured, signed deals worth billions and dismissed underlings with a flick of the wrist. She was a titan of industry, a visionary lauded on magazine covers, yet the silence in her penthouse apartment was as vast and cold as the view. Her life was a fortress of success, meticulously constructed to keep the world at a distance, and she, its sole, lonely occupant. The two of them, the mechanic and the magnate, existed in separate universes, destined never to collide until a single, catastrophic failure brought Genevieve's world crashing down to earth. The breakdown happened at the worst possible moment. The annual Sterling Innovations Gala was the centerpiece of the corporate calendar, and this year it was meant to be a triumph. The centerpiece was Genevieve's personal vehicle, the Spectre, a multi-million-dollar electric hypercar prototype that represented the company's future. As it purred to a stop on the red carpet, under the blinding flash of 100 cameras, it died. The lights went dark, the doors sealed shut. A wave of mortified silence fell over the crowd. Genevieve, trapped inside and having fortified her nerves with 2 glasses of champagne too many, felt a hot surge of fury and humiliation. Her own engineers, the best minds money could buy, swarmed the vehicle, their tablets and diagnostic tools proving useless against the silent, stubborn machine. Elias, whose garage held the service contract for the event's fleet, watched from the periphery. He saw the panicked faces, the frantic, useless tapping on screens. He saw a problem that wasn't just electrical, but fundamental. He approached her chief of security. "I think I can help." The message was relayed. Through the thick armored glass, Genevieve glared at him. A man in simple, grease-stained overalls. She waved a dismissive hand. Minutes turned into a quarter of an hour. The PR disaster was metastasizing in real time. Finally desperate, Genevieve had the door manually overridden. She stepped out, her composure a brittle facade. Elias stepped forward again. "Ma'am, I believe the issue is a resonance cascade in the primary battery bus. The thermal regulators are stuck in a feedback loop." Genevieve, her judgment blurred by champagne and rage, laughed a sharp, cruel laugh. "A resonance cascade? What are you, a sci-fi writer? You're a mechanic." She gestured to her baffled team of PhDs. "These are the brightest engineers in the world. What makes you think a grease monkey like you can fix their creation?" The cameras were still flashing, capturing every word. She took a step closer, her voice a low, dangerous hiss. "Fine. You want to be a hero? Go on. If you can start this car in the next 5 minutes, I'll write you a check for $100,000. If you can't, you'll be cleaning oil stains off this pavement with a toothbrush for the rest of your life." A hush fell. Elias met her gaze, his expression unreadable. There was no fear in his eyes, only a quiet, unnerving calm. "I don't need your money, ma'am," he said, his voice even. "But I'll get your car started. Just need my tool roll." He walked to his service truck, retrieved a worn leather roll, and returned to the dead machine. He didn't plug in a computer. He didn't consult a schematic. He unlatched a small service panel near the front wheel well that the other engineers had ignored, a panel he seemed to know was there. He placed his hand on the chassis, closing his eyes for a brief moment as if listening to a secret. He then selected a simple, unadorned wrench and a screwdriver. With a few deft movements, too quick for most to follow, he reached deep inside. There was a soft click, a metallic scrape, and then another click. He withdrew his hands, closed the panel, and stepped back. "Try it now," he said, not to Genevieve, but to her lead engineer. The engineer, skeptical but cowed, pressed the ignition sequence on his tablet. The Spectre's accent lighting pulsed to life, a soft blue glow that swept across its body. The electric motor whirred, a silent, powerful hum that filled the night. The crowd erupted into applause. Genevieve stared, her mouth agape, the alcohol-fueled anger instantly extinguished by a wave of cold, sober disbelief. The mechanic, this nobody, had fixed the unfixable in under 2 minutes with a simple wrench. The next morning, an ice pack on her head and a storm in her mind, Genevieve Sterling did not forget. Humiliation had been replaced by a gnawing, obsessive curiosity. The mechanic's words echoed in her thoughts. Resonance cascade, thermal regulators, feedback loop. It wasn't jargon. It was the precise, esoteric language of a high-level systems architect. Who was this man? She summoned her head of security, a man whose entire career was built on unearthing secrets. "I want to know everything about him," she commanded. "Elias Vance. I want his credit score, his high school report card, his favorite brand of coffee. Everything." The file arrived on her desk by midday. It was thin, but what it contained rocked her to her core. Elias Vance was not just a mechanic. He was the Elias Vance, a prodigy from MIT, holder of 17 patents in power cell technology before the age of 30. He was the chief architect of the Helios core, a revolutionary energy system that had promised to change the world. Then, 5 years ago, he had vanished. The file detailed the official story: a catastrophic failure during a final test, a project collapse that cost investors billions. Vance had taken full responsibility and disappeared from the tech world completely. But her security chief had dug deeper. The failure wasn't Vance's, it was a subordinate who cut corners, pressured by a board that prioritized speed over safety. Vance had taken the fall to protect his team from the corporate fallout. In the same tragic month, his wife, an astrophysicist, had succumbed to a sudden illness. He had walked away from it all, trading a world of fame and fortune for a quiet life in a garage, raising the daughter they had together. Genevieve stared at his photo, the same calm, steady eyes that had met her drunken tirade, and felt a profound sense of dislocation. She hadn't just insulted a mechanic, she had publicly humiliated a fallen giant. Driven by a strange mix of guilt and fascination, she went to his garage that afternoon. It was a world away from her sterile tower. Tools hung in perfect order on pegboards, machinery gleamed under fluorescent lights, and the air was thick with the honest smell of work. Elias was underneath a vintage car, his voice patiently explaining the function of a gasket to Maya, who lay beside him on a creeper, watching with wide, curious eyes. He slid out when he saw Genevieve's expensive sedan pull up. He wiped his hands on a rag, his expression guarded. "Ms. Sterling." "Mr. Vance," she began, the words feeling clumsy and inadequate. "I came to apologize, and to offer you a job, any job. Name your price." He just shook his head, a small, sad smile on his face. "I appreciate that, but I have a job, and I have everything I need right here." Just then, Maya wriggled out from under the car, clutching a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of the Spectre, surrounded by yellow smiley faces. She walked right up to Genevieve and held it out. "Daddy fixed your sad car," the little girl said, with 7-year-old solemnity. "He can fix anything that's broken." The simple, heartfelt words pierced Genevieve's carefully constructed armor. She looked from the drawing to the deep, unwavering love in Elias's eyes as he looked at his daughter, and she felt the crushing weight of her own emptiness. At that exact moment, her phone buzzed with a frantic high-priority alert. A system-wide failure was cascading through her company's network. It wasn't a glitch. It was a targeted, sophisticated attack, and the digital signature, the very architecture of the virus, was eerily familiar. It was based on the Helios core. Her mind raced, landing on one name, Marcus Thorne, her former fiancé, and now her most bitter rival, a man who knew her company's history and its vulnerabilities, a man who knew exactly where to stick the knife. Her corporate bravado vanished, replaced by raw fear. She looked at the one man on Earth who understood that system better than its creator. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "Elias, I need your help." Elias saw the genuine panic in her eyes. It wasn't the arrogance of a CEO anymore. It was the fear of someone watching their life's work burn to the ground. He felt a reluctant pull of responsibility, not to her, but to the work he had once created, now being twisted into a weapon. "On my terms," he said. "We work from here." For the next several days, the hum of high-end servers mingled with the clank of wrenches in his garage. Genevieve, stripped of her executive entourage, sat on a stool amidst the engines and tool chests, a fish out of water. Elias moved with an electrifying grace, his fingers flying across a keyboard, a half-dozen monitors reflecting in his glasses. He confirmed her suspicions. The attack was a ghost, built on the bones of his old code, and it was designed to methodically erase the company's R&D archives while simultaneously framing her chief operating officer. They found fragments, digital fingerprints that pointed straight to Marcus Thorne. They compiled a dossier of evidence, circumstantial but compelling, and Genevieve called an emergency board meeting. She presented their findings with cold, hard logic. But Marcus was prepared. He had already seeded the board with doubts, whispering about her erratic behavior, her reliance on an unknown mechanic. He produced forged emails that seemed to implicate the COO, painting Genevieve's accusations as a desperate, paranoid attempt to shift blame for her own failures. The board, risk-averse and spooked, didn't fire her, but they put her on notice. She left the meeting not vindicated, but wounded and isolated. The attack had failed, but so had she. "He's not just trying to hurt the company," Elias said that night, his face grim in the glow of the monitors. "He's trying to erase you." The setback had only sharpened his focus. Genevieve, for her part, felt a strange sense of clarity. The corporate battle felt secondary to the human drama unfolding in this garage. She watched Elias interact with Maya, switching seamlessly from deciphering malicious code to helping with homework. He told her about his wife, about their shared dream of building things that lasted, things that helped people. He spoke of the crushing pressure from his former board, their relentless demands for results at any cost, a pressure he now saw reflected in Genevieve's own life. "I built a fortress, Elias," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper, "and I never realized I was the only one trapped inside." As she spoke, an alarm blared from Elias's main monitor. "He's escalating," Elias said, his voice tight. "It's not a virus anymore. It's a siphon. He's not trying to destroy the data. He's stealing it. The wipe is just to cover his tracks." He had found the true payload, a massive ongoing data transfer to a hidden server, containing every blueprint, every patent, every secret of Sterling Innovations. But within that discovery, Elias saw an opportunity. "He's arrogant," Elias mused, a plan beginning to form. "He thinks he's won. We can use that. We can build him a door and watch him walk right through it." The plan was audacious, a digital Trojan horse. Elias would create a honeypot, a fake data vault disguised as the real R&D server. When Marcus made his final move to steal the last, most valuable files, he would instead be logging into their trap. The trap would not only block his access, but would also capture an undeniable, cryptographically signed record of his intrusion from his specific IP address. It was a digital smoking gun. While Elias built the trap, Genevieve used her knowledge of her rival's psychology. "Marcus's ego is his greatest weakness," she said. "He won't just steal the data, he'll want to gloat. He'll announce it as his own breakthrough." A quick search confirmed it. Thorne Industries had scheduled a major press conference in 2 days to unveil a paradigm-shifting new technology. That was their stage. The night before the conference, the tension in the garage was thick enough to cut with a knife. Genevieve was pacing, running through every possible outcome. Maya, sensing the stress, came over and tugged on her sleeve. "Are you scared?" the little girl asked. Genevieve knelt down. "Yes, a little." Maya nodded seriously. "Daddy gets scared sometimes, but he says you have to be brave to fix the really big broken things." The simple wisdom, delivered with absolute sincerity, steadied Genevieve's nerves. She wasn't just fighting for her company anymore. She was fighting for a chance to build something new, something better, something worthy of the integrity she saw in this small garage. The ballroom was a sea of reporters and flashing cameras. Marcus Thorne stood at a podium, the picture of corporate success, his voice booming as he described the future his company had single-handedly invented. He was at the peak of his triumph. As he prepared to play a video demonstrating the technology, a new figure walked onto the stage. It was Genevieve Sterling. A wave of murmurs swept through the room. "An impressive presentation, Marcus," she said, her voice calm and clear, amplified by the podium microphone she now stood beside. So impressive, in fact, that it looks identical to the Project Chimera files stolen from my company's servers over the past week. Marcus laughed, a practiced, dismissive sound. "Genevieve, must you continue with these delusions? You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" she countered, her gaze unwavering. "Then prove it. Show them your work. Log into your private server, right here, right now, and show the world the raw data for your revolutionary technology." It was the perfect bait. His arrogance wouldn't let him refuse. Confident that the data wipe had erased all evidence, he smirked at the crowd. Gladly, he turned to the massive screen behind him and, with a few keystrokes on a tablet, logged into his secure server. But instead of his stolen files, the screen flickered and resolved into the Sterling Innovations logo. Below it, a system log appeared, tracing the data siphon in real time, showing gigabytes of proprietary data flowing from her servers to his. And at the very bottom, in large red letters, was his authenticated IP address and a timestamp from that very second. The digital trap had sprung. A collective gasp went through the audience as they realized they were witnessing a crime in progress. Marcus Thorne's face went white. The smug triumph evaporated, replaced by the slack-jawed horror of a man utterly and publicly ruined. In the aftermath, Marcus Thorne was arrested, his company imploded, and the story of the brilliant CEO and the mysterious mechanic became industry legend. The board of Sterling Innovations, profoundly humbled, gave Genevieve their unconditional support. She returned not as the same ruthless leader, but as someone transformed, someone who now valued integrity as much as innovation. Her first act was to drive to Elias's garage. She formally offered him the position of Chief Technology Officer, a 7-figure salary, and a corner office with a view that rivaled her own. Elias smiled, wiping a smudge of dirt from his cheek. "Thank you, Ms. Sterling, but I already told you, I'm a mechanic." He looked around his garage at the ordered calm of his world. "But I will admit, your company has a few things that still need fixing." He countered with his own proposal. He would not be an executive in a tower. He would lead a new division, the Integrity Division, focused on ethical R&D and sustainable technology. He would work from a new, state-of-the-art workshop they would build for him right here, on his property, so he could always be near Maya. Weeks later, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across a park lawn. Genevieve, Elias, and Maya were finishing a picnic. Genevieve, dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, laughed as she helped Maya fix the chain on her small bicycle, getting a smear of black grease on her hand. She looked at it for a moment, not with annoyance, but with a sense of wonder. It was a mark of a different life, a better one. Elias watched them, a feeling of profound peace settling over him. The disparate parts of their lives, his quiet integrity and her powerful ambition, his gentle hands and her sharp mind, had somehow been assembled into a new, beautiful machine. They were a family, forged not in boardrooms or balance sheets, but in a dusty garage, built on a foundation of trust, redemption, and the simple truth that the best things in life aren't owned but fixed. Have you ever realized that someone's true value was hidden in plain sight? The most brilliant minds and the kindest hearts are often not found in the spotlight, but in the quiet places where real work gets done. True strength isn't about the title you hold, but the character you reveal when tested. If this story of hidden genius and earned redemption moved you, share it with someone who appreciates that a person's worth is always more than what it seems on the surface.